Hello, I'm Congresswoman Judy Chu from California's 27th District and also the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus in Congress. I'm so thrilled to be with you on this night where we made history, where we witnessed Kamala Harris becoming the first Asian American in our nation's history to ever compete in a general election debate. After decades of feeling so invisible and overlooked in this political process, the Asian American and Pacific Islander community has a voice, and they have a voice in this incredible candidate, Kamala Harris, the first ever Asian American and the first Black woman vice presidential nominee on a major party ticket. Now, let me say, as an Asian American woman myself, it's been so incredible to see Kamala Harris shatter one of the highest glass ceilings and to know that we can have an Asian American in the White House. Just think, instead of having someone blame Asian Americans for the coronavirus and use racial slurs like China plague and Kung flu, we could have someone who embraces diversity and condemns anti-Asian bigotry. Instead of someone who accuses immigrants of being evil, we could have someone who acknowledges our contributions. Instead of a failed coronavirus response that's left over 210,000 Americans dead and millions unemployed, we could have someone who listens to health experts and listens to science. I thought Kamala Harris did a masterful job tonight. She was able to lay out the Biden-Harris plan, and she was able to lay out why the Trump plan and actions have failed the American people. And on so many issues, Pence was unable to even answer the questions. For instance, he was asked, how is it that 210,000 people could be dead and we have the highest per capita death rate out of all the developed nations? And why is it that in the Rose Garden, none of the precautions that the scientists were recommending took place and it was a super spreader event? Well, what was his answer? Silence. And instead, Kamala Harris was able to lay out their plan for testing and tracing and getting our nation back on track. And Pence was asked, well, what will happen with pre-existing conditions? You've been there for 4 years and you don't have a plan for making sure people can get health care if they have a pre-existing condition. Again, silence. But what Kamala Harris laid out was an expansion of the Affordable Care Act. And she was able to point out that right at that very minute, Trump and Pence were in court trying to do away with the ACA. And then on the question of the peaceful transition of power, they asked, would you commit to a peaceful transition of power? From Pence, silence. But Kamala Harris was able to lay out their incredible coalition and their ability to respect the laws of this land. And how about racial division? When Pence was confronted by Kamala Harris about him saying that there were fine people on both sides in Charlottesville, or that there was a Muslim ban, or that Trump was calling Mexicans rapists and terrorists, he had nothing to say about that except that Trump was misquoted. But Kamala Harris has talked continuously about defending people of color and making sure everybody has a place in this country. I, in particular, actually appreciate the fact also that she was able to address an issue that has hurt our Asian Americans here in this country, and that is on the issue of China. Because as we all know, Trump's go-to answer to any problem that's occurring in America is to blame China. But she pointed out that actually on blaming China for the coronavirus, It was Trump that got rid of the CDC observers who could have helped us reach a solution on the coronavirus. And on his trade war with China, actually, that resulted in a loss of 300,000 manufacturing jobs. And on him blaming China so that he could appear like the master of the universe, the Pew Research study showed that leaders of all nations now hold Xi Jinping in higher standing than Donald Trump. That was actually startling to me. Well, let me say, she had the facts, she had the connections, she talked to the American people, and I think she did so well in tonight's debate, inspiring AAPIs all across the nation. We are finally being seen, and finally, we are able to energize our incredible AAPI vote, which has more than doubled over the last decade, with more than 11 million AAPIs eligible to vote this year. So we want to energize all those voters. I know I'm fired up, ready to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as our next president and vice president of the United States. We need to help American families and businesses who are suffering due to Donald Trump and Mike Pence. We need to restore leadership and decency and compassion to the White House. So let's make sure we elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris